Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable. WazirX and CNBC TV18 present Crypto, Digital Assets of the Future.
Hello and welcome to this special series. WazirX and CNBC TV18 present Crypto, Digital Assets of the Future. This week we will focus on India, the need for crypto regulations. While there has been resistance from traditional monetary systems, as an asset class, the crypto market has been making significant strides in the last 1 year. The market capitalization of the industry has grown six-fold during the same time. Developed nations like US, UK, Japan and Australia have regulated the cryptocurrency market with enough safeguards for its people. India has witnessed more than 10 million investors having an exposure to cryptocurrencies via registered exchanges. The journey hasn't been smooth. The ecosystem hasn't always enjoyed support from banks. The lack of regulations and consumer protection has led to a state of uncertainty even among the enthusiasts. As of now, the exchanges are self-compliant with KYC and anti-money laundering norms. But a lot is being done, and cryptocurrency regulation bill is likely to be tabled in the parliament during the monsoon session. And there is a lot of work that the community in India has done in that regard. To discuss this and more, I am now joined by Siddharth Sogani. He is CEO, Cribaco Global. Siddharth, hi. The lack of clarity and regulations in India is not only hindering the adoption of the best performing asset class in India, it is also inhibiting the innovation and leadership in the field of blockchain technology by various Indians. How have you seen the situation as it stands right now?
Yes, since the time crypto has been there, there has been a lot of reluctance in people investing in this space. And, when the first draft bill news came in that, there is going to be a ban and, a 10-year jail and all those things, there has been a lot of negativity and reluctance in the crypto space in India specifically, So, however, the people are using crypto. The adoption is going fine after the Supreme Court judgment, which quashed the RBI, stance on this. We are seeing a lot of people coming in the last 3 to 6 months. I believe about the community has gone threefold. Like previously it was less than 1 million users, and in 2008, and now we are seeing above 8 million users. So the growth has been substantial. And but yes, if the government gives more clarity on this space, how it should be regulated, how it should be taxed, how it should be shown in the books, the reluctance will go away and people will start coming in with more confidence.
So that, of course, various economies are looking at each other on who takes the lead in sense of regulations. And while various countries have seen put in some sense of regulation, El Salvador clearly has been one example, the first of its kind as a legal tender in this country. How is India looking to all of this? We clearly have seen the narrative change, but how much?
See, El Salvador is a very small country with just a 6.5 million population. It doesn't even have a direct settlement account with the US. In such a small country, for them, they have nothing to lose, right? And their currency being weaker, they have Bitcoin as a great option to adopt. But in countries like India, we have a fear of capital outflow, right? Where people would convert their Indian rupees and move it into crypto and move it outside. So this is a risk which government sees, and it is a similarly, even in China, if you see, they have banned the fiat to crypto conversion because they have a fear of capital outflow. So this is a problem. But see, the approach the government has to be more wider. You have to understand that you cannot ban Bitcoin, right? It is internet. It is wherever you are. You're in a jungle or you are on Iceland or wherever. If you have got internet access and a $100 smartphone, you can access your Bitcoin, right? So you cannot ban it because it's in the internet. So the best place to instead of banning it, you have to regulate it. Tell people that, since it cannot be banned, just show it in your books in the right manner, pay taxes, that exchanges should be more compliant, more regulated than what they are today. And you'll see great great growth in this space.
Siddharth, as Kribacco, you've been working in various countries. I mean, I've been reading a lot of stuff that you do in sense of, exchanges and blockchains and the technology itself in Indian markets when it comes to credit rating it or having conversations with the regulators or the community itself. What really has been the experience?
See, Indian regulators, I have interacted with a lot of them. They have this idea of what Bitcoin is, and they have their own concerns. They know that it is beyond the control of the government. There's money laundering happening. A lot of illicit activities have also taken place. There have been a lot of scams. So the government has to run the country. You cannot be one-sided and they say that crypto is good. You have to see, you have to get in the government's shoes and see how they have to regulate it. So one good thing which I have been noticing is the government, the people who are in the deciding committees, they are quite aware of how cryptos work. That's a really good approach by them, and they are open to regulating it. However, they have their own concerns because see, India is not open country in terms of its economy. You cannot go to a hotel and pay in US dollars and for a cup of coffee, right? You have to convert it into INR and then pay for your coffee. But if you're in Europe, you can just pay in dollars, euros, pounds, whatever currency you have, and they can bill you in that currency. Because in India the Indian rupee is not a freely convertible currency, right? So if something which is so global in nature, when Bitcoin, which is borderless, and cross-border transactions are taking place in seconds, it becomes a challenge for the government to put proper regulations. Like RBI comes into this because it's a cross-border transaction. If it is termed as an asset, then SEBI would come in, or IFSCA, or all these regulatory bodies should come in. So it's not just one department which has to amend their framework. There are several departments, probably even the Coinage Act, or the Banking Act. Everything have to be changed. So it's gonna take time. It's not that it's like if I'm selling a T-shirt to somebody in the US and he's sending me a payment in Bitcoin. I don't have the proper route to show it in my books, right? The channels are not very clear. If I'm sending it in the regular way, there is a SWIFT channel. It goes to the RBI, then my bank converts it into INR. The custom department knows that the money has been received. But in Bitcoin, it's a peer-to-peer transaction. So there has to be a mechanism where RBI can account for receipts, payments, or whatever transactions are taking place using cryptocurrencies because they are peer-to-peer.
Right. So, Siddharth, we do understand that the monsoon session might see, a bill being put on table at least. I mean, as you said, there's just so much work that still needs to be done. There are conversations on how perhaps the gift city is something that could be started on before we actually see it happen into mainland India. But you have been talking to entrepreneurs, you've been talking to startups, and there are investments into this field right now. What is the kind of opportunity that this sector sees in sense of, Indian economic system as well?
Amazing opportunity. Honestly, I'm in Gift City right now. See, the opportunity is great. In 2018, we estimated a market size of $12.9 billion, which has gone up exponentially now. It is around $19 to $20 billion in India. India has 7,500 developers, at least over 2,500 content writers, which generate on an average a salary of $6,000, which is wonderful, So, and a lot of them are also receiving payments in Bitcoins, which are not declared at all. So if the government regulates it, people who are doing it behind the curtains, they'll probably come out and, openly they'll say that we are blockchain developers, we are coding smart contracts, we are making DeFi protocols, and all that money which is coming in as crypto can be accounted for, and the government's books would grow. The government, the RBI has to have, like how it maintains ledgers for several foreign currencies, they have to maintain a ledger for Bitcoin as well, or other cryptocurrencies for that matter, so that, all that money coming in can be accounted to the GDP of the country. So the growth is crazy. In the last 2 or 3 years, because of the reluctance in the ecosystem, there are about 250 startups in India in this space. Several exchanges are there. Only the top 4, 5 are quite prominent, but others have either shut down the business because of regulatory uncertainty. And one more thing which I have noticed is they all have offshore entities in countries like Singapore, Malta, and the funding is going there, which is not in favor of our country's economy. So if the government says that crypto exchange is totally regulated, come here, start your business, all that funding which is going to that offshore entity would actually come directly to India, and that would be fantastic. In just in India, I'm saying in the last 18 months, about $200 million of funding has been done to several crypto companies, probably more than that.
Okay.
So that's wonderful.
Well, the numbers are big and the opportunities are huge, as you're telling us, and the inward remittances is something that you just spoke about. But there is a lot that there is to crypto, and it's a relation to various other asset classes as well. But we'll talk about all of that, Siddharth, after this very short break.
WazirX and CNBC TV18 present Crypto, Digital Assets of the Future. WazirX and CNBC TV18 present Crypto, Digital Assets of the Future.
Welcome back, and we are in conversation with Siddhartha Sogani, CEO Cribaco. Siddharth, you talked about opportunities, and yes, even as we are awaiting regulatory clarity here, the DeFi, the opportunities, the startups, the inward remittances, the digitization, even NFT for that matter, Indians are, while on one side looking at the legality of it, and the other side the regulation of it. How would you put the difference between the two and the kind of excitement that we've seen in these various ways?
See, on the regulation side, people are very reluctant. I would say only small investors are coming in. About majority, I would say more than 70% of the users in this space are under the age of 35. So all these young guys are coming in, but the market will open up. The actual opening, the actual action would be seen when the government regulates it and institutional investors start coming in. So right now, the institutional investors cannot invest because their ticket size is much more than probably the LRS allows you. Because when you put your money into a crypto exchange and probably transfer it to some international exchange, you're technically sending money out of the country. So there is a bracket of $250,000, which the government under the liberalized remittance scheme allows you to do that. But the institutional investors have much bigger ticket sizes, right? So 250K is nothing for them. So when the regulations come in, you'll see actual action taking place. And right now, whoever, the developers are experimenting, nascent investors at their individual capacities are experimenting it, and they're making great money as well. But I don't see the market reaching to where, to a new high until and unless the institutional money comes in.
So that decentralized finance and a parallel money system is something that, of course, the regulators and the banks do not like. But the other thing that the regulators also do not like is the kind of volatility that we see in these cryptocurrencies. So protecting the consumer or protecting the investor is yet another area which a lot of people are looking at right now.
Yes. See, crypto is very volatile. If you see that, if you're making a chocolate milkshake and the chocolate syrup is here, then there are cookies, there's milk, there's ice, So right now, Bitcoin's wallet holders are like this chocolate syrup, And when you shake the container, what happens is the market goes up, and the big whales which are having probably tens of thousands of Bitcoin, they'll probably sell. Then the market crashes. The people who are new to the space, they'll buy. So the more market goes up and down, the more wealth distribution takes place. So if you see in the long run, like, if you see probably a 4-hour candle on a one-day chart, it'll look like this. But if you zoom out and see the chart, it is going up like this, So it's going upwards. So you have to understand that this is very nascent. Don't compare it with traditional S&P 500 or gold or, all those existing commodities which are out there since probably centuries. This is a very nascent asset class comparatively. It's just 10 years old. And there is a lot of volatility, but now it has become much more stable because the wealth distribution is slowly taking place. That chocolate milkshake is becoming more consistent.
So even as we talk about the regulatory aspect, and we still are awaiting clarity on that, but if you look at the last couple of months, we've seen a lot of global big names acquire Indian assets or trying to set shop in India. What is the kind of market that global companies see India as? Is it sheer population or the kind of interest or the strong excitement that you see in this space?
India is a great market for crypto. Three main reasons. One is Indians love to invest. Indians love to save. At least one person in each family is kind of investing in stocks, on an average. So that gives us a, great potential that, people get into this crypto space. Even if they invest 5% of their portfolio in crypto, the market is going crazy. Second is the population. We have about 7 million users, 6.5 to 7 million confirmed users, who are young, like young guys. It's very easy to adopt to something like crypto. The elder generation will not get this, but the younger generation, we know that digital assets have value. There is digital presence. So for us to understand DeFi crypto is really good. And of course, the market size is really huge. It's 1.3 billion people over here with a lot of, I think probably less than 40 years of age, more than 70% of the people. So it's a huge, huge market for these international players. Also, just take example of UPI, 2,500 million transactions takes place in a month's time. So the micro payment market is really huge. So if crypto comes in, it will complement it.
Siddharth, also when you look at the cryptocurrencies itself, I mean, we've seen them being called an inflation hedge for the reason on what they really put out. How have you seen these correlations? Have you done any studies, analysis on these?
Absolutely. See, in the last 18 months, about 30%, 35% of the money has been printed by the Fed. So if you see the money supply, the M0 index, for the last 2 years, you'll see a sudden spike. So that's because of the COVID, there has been helicopter drops, the governments have printed a lot of money. the Indian government has given so much grants. So the inflation has gone up significantly. Now, Bitcoin is a deflationary asset with fixed supply. So when inflation takes place, commodities like silver, gold, and now Bitcoin, they start going up because they have a fixed or a scarce supply. So I see that because of all this, and of course we are due for a recession already. The markets, people have now started reacting to the inflation. The markets are reacting to the inflation because the 10-year bond rate by the US government has been it was changed by 100 basis points. So there is significant money in the market. Just to make it easier, like suppose you and I are sitting in a room and we have got 100 rupees in our pockets and we want to buy an apple. We assuming the price of the apple is 100 rupees, and somebody comes and gives us $1,000 each. What happens to the price of that apple? It will go up, because we are willing to pay more for that apple. So similarly, when government issues more money, there is increase in the price of commodities in spite of when there is no change in demand or supply. So this is what is happening. You see the commodities. I was just reading about it, and like coal, you'll see steel, you'll see cotton. They all have gone up by 50%. So I see a great potential growth opportunity for Bitcoin as well, because it is just gonna, keeping in mind, looking at the situation, I see a threefold quite easily.
But Siddharth, as you said, it's usually the younger generation which is investing into cryptocurrencies right now. But there is a whole sector which also is, invested in it because of the technology part of it. And while, of course, we also have had the ministry tell, asking corporates to list out if they hold cryptocurrencies. This is clearly the kind of volumes and the participation that we've seen in India in last 1 year or so. So what is your sense? I understand the technology and the usage, and blockchain is something that the government has been quite quite warm too. But how would you look at the cryptocurrencies? Would you advise investing into it? And the kind of forecast that we see for many of these cryptocurrencies, 10x from here on, what is your sense on all of that?
See, don't FOMO into it. You have to. It's like, if you have a 1 lakh rupee portfolio, just put 5% of it in crypto. I would say Bitcoin, primarily Bitcoin, because that's the biggest store value. Just put 5% of it in Bitcoin and assume you've taken an insurance. Because when the market starts falling, that 95% will go down, but this 5% will remain where it is or probably move up. So it's like you can consider it as an insurance for an entire portfolio. Don't FOMO into it. Don't buy those meme coins and all those, I don't know, those Shiba and all those, I don't know, those coins. But just be safe, invest in the store value assets, Bitcoin, Litecoin, all those, the coins which are there since many years, and they have a clear purpose of a store value. So just invest in that. Don't FOMO into it.
I don't know if too many people would call it as an insurance, Siddharth, but I get your point.
I get it. People have their own terminology. Some say that it's people go as a Bitcoin maximalist and all that. That's all fine, but you have to see that this is something which is solving a huge gap. It's fixed in supply. It is peer-to-peer. It's decentralized. Nobody can stop it. If there are any geopolitical issues, there's a war going on, nothing really happens to it fundamentally, right? And in a short term, there may be speculation. Elon Musk tweets and the market falls. That is a short-term speculation. But in the long run, fundamentally, it is wonderful to have in your portfolio.
I get that point. And yes, as Siddhartha is saying, that you need to invest in a cryptocurrency if you want to, but you have to understand the blockchain or the platform and the store of value that it offers to you. Siddhartha, with that, it's all the time that we have on the show. Thank you so much for joining us and talking about all those whole host of issues about cryptocurrencies. Thank you.
WazirX and CNBC TV18 present Crypto, Digital Assets of the Future. Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.